Shalom Aleichem. Once again, like every week, it's a pleasure to be with you. And this unbelievable schus to be Ma'abitz Torah, the other end of the world, thousands of miles away, the marvels of the modern world. And there's so much negativity in digital technology, we cannot ignore the positive ways we could utilize this technology to enhance Talmud Torah. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I'm a very backward person regarding technology. And I think I am very short on battery. Chaim Orlinsky, my dear friend, just was in my house 2 minutes ago, and he says, you have a charger that's made for little smartphones, not for a computer or an iPad. So he promised to get me another charger. We need Siyata D'Shmaya to make it through today's Shia. So I will try to be precise. I also wanted to share some words of Tanchumin upon the passing of Rabbeinu, Rav Gershon Edelstein, who was a Gadol B'Yisrael, but a very tzanua person. Unlike Rab Chaim Kanievsky, that was known, Miktseu Oyom V'at Ketseu, and almost everyone had the opportunity to interact with Rab Chaim. Relatively few people interacted with Rab Gershon, but I doubt we'll have time for that. So it's still going to be within the Shloshim. Maybe next week we'll do that. But right now, let's just go into the sugya. Shoyel Chayev Ba'oinsen. And last week we explained there are 4 different types of SHOMRIM. Shoyel, Kolanu Shaloi. He has maximum benefit, and therefore he bears maximum liability. And he's chayiv even when he did nothing wrong. He borrowed a kli, he borrowed an animal, and suddenly the animal dropped dead. And no wrongdoing. I bear no responsibility. Afar pikan shoyel chayev ba'oinsen oikmer rachmona b'rshusei. And we spoke about this last week. However, even a shoyel is poter mesa machmas malocha. And the Gemara explains this halacha in very simple words, as we see on our screen. I did not borrow this object, whether it's a car or a horse or a donkey or a tool. I did not borrow it to keep it in a showcase. I borrowed it to use it. And if it was damaged by normal, standard, proper usage, then the shoyel bears no liability. There are 4 different interpretations of this halacha, and I want to suggest number 5. 2 of the Rishonim and 2 of the Achronim. And as usual, Terosin Shel Rishonim is the most pure, logical interpretation. The Ramban on the spot, his opinion is Meisa Machmas Malacha Poto, because it is the lender that really bears responsibility. And why is that? You know your animal. You know its shortcomings. And therefore, you should have let me know that this is a weak animal. Don't work hard with it. Let's have a look at the Ramban. Lo b'pshiyas demashel. Shoyel vadei chayev ba'oinsen, aval lo b'pshiyas demashel. V'kan mashel poshabo. Shesh'ira lamalocha v'hi eini yachoy lispoil oinsa malocha. And therefore, if an animal dies in the normal process of working, obviously the animal wasn't fitting to do the job. And the owner of that animal should have known that, and therefore here bears responsibility. And because of the Ramban's pshat, let's have a look at the last line. Veru'isi b'sefer HaRam, Zal, he means the Rambam, and we'll get to the Rambam shortly. Meisa b'shas malacha v'ta'usu. The Rambam writes, if an animal died b'shas malacha, potur. The Ramban, according to his interpretation and understanding, says, doesn't depend, it doesn't matter when it died. It matters why it died. When is not relevant. So therefore the Rambam is a mistake. Well, we always assume the Rambam is not a mistake, and neither is the Ramban. So we will deal with different understandings and interpretations, different pshat, the Rambam and Ramban. But the Ramban's opinion is very clear. The Ramban says, if it's Meisa Machmas Halacha, then the lender is to blame and not the borrower. Ritva, on our very same page, follows in the footsteps of the Ramban, and that is why he says, but if the shoyal used it extensively, more than the normal usage, it's no longer the responsibility of the mashil. It is totally the wrongdoing of the shoyal, and therefore, chai. HaRav, second column, last paragraph. Nereli dahainu ikar tamei derove devadei. Manda masel pora lachaveiro made the yoda David la kusha bebisla. The lavla oike me bekil se shalo. Vafilo hocha lo SHOMRIM me'akora bekachashem. Vekiven de lo bekhash kopit. Afba mesa machmas manocha namale kopit. The Rashba has a totally different approach. And the Rashba says, a person is aware that when you work with an animal, it might be hurt, might even die, happens all the time. When you work with an electrical appliance, sometimes, it makes a ketzer. What's a ketzer in English? Well, any tool you work with, ultimately sooner or later, short circuit, anything you work with sooner or later might just wear and tear. It just might break when you're using it. And the mashil, the lender, is aware of that, and he didn't stipulate, if the animal dies, I want you to pay. So, adate dehochi sova v'kibel, like up it. And the Rashba, as well as the Ramban says, he rejects the Rambam. It doesn't depend when, it depends why. These are the two fundamental pshatim in the Rishonim. Bir hakro. If we could go over to Shulchan Aruch and Shin Mem, Bir Sif Kotten Gimel. So in Shin Mem, the beginning of Shin Mem, Sif Aleph, the Ramah says, Shoyal Chayev ba'oinsin, but only if the oinus was caused by the way the shoyal handled whatever he borrowed. If it's an oinus shaloibo machmas shoyel, he bears no liability. Let me make clear, this Ramah doesn't deal with the concept of Mesa Machmas Malacha. What he's talking about is Chiyuv Oinsin the shoyel. A shoyel is chayav only ba'oinus sheba machmas hashoyel. And that is the opinion of the Ramah. No, we are on Sif Gimel. We go back to Sif Aleph. Hashoyel mechaveiro behemoike o ira oinus machmas hashoyel. Avalem ira oinus machmas hamashir potul. Hashoyel mechaveiro behemoy metaltalin. Venensu biyodoi. Kagan shemesa chayev. The Ramah writes dafke she'ira oinus machmas hashoyel. Let's scroll down to the Biragra on this very same page. The Biragra writes.
Sorry, Rebbe, we don't have that copy. I'm sorry, Rebbe, we don't have it.
Okay, so let me just share it with you. What, you don't have Biragra? I think it's this very same page. Oh, okay. So we don't have Biragra. So the Gaon says, Hainu tamed mesa machmas malacha. The Rama doesn't deal with Mesa Machmas Malach, he deals with Einstein. But the Goan says, that is why Mesa Machmas Malach Patu. Is that so? Well, Mesa Machmas Malach is Mekoyach HaShoyel. It is only because the Shoyel was using that tool that it broke down. It was only because the Shoyel was using the animal that it broke down. So that is Machmas HaShoyel. So it's hard to understand the approach of the Goan. So the Goan says, Mesa Machmas Malach is not Machmas HaShoyel. Depends how you interpret Machmas HaShoyel. We're dealing with Einsim. Einus is not Pshia. He did nothing wrong. So why wouldn't Mesa Machmas Malach be Machmas HaShoyel? Do we have the Machna Ephraim Hilchas Shala? Siman Dalid? The Machna Ephraim has a gewaldige Chiddush, and he says, here we are. Kushyosoy Shel HaRamban.
Oh, I see. You're right.
La'niyas dati ayunerali tamacher. Next paragraph. So why would the Machna Ephraim suggest a new approach if he's aware of the two approaches of the Rishonim? But let's see what he has to say.
You're right.
So that's an amazing new approach. Shalabetos. And if it's shalabetos, I bear no liability. I bear no responsibility. I'm not even a shomer. It's a mistake. You gave me an animal that's not fitting for the job. Shalabetos. However, mekachtos is only if it was evident that in the first place it wasn't ra'ui. I think this is a far stretch. Everybody agrees that Mesa Machmas Malach is exeris HaKosov, it's a din Torah. The question is, how do we understand this halach? But when I buy a cow, 5 minutes after I take the cow into my possession, it drops dead. Is that a mekach tos? No. Mekach tos is only when it is clear to us that at the time of the purchase, there was something, some deficiency that if I would have known, I wouldn't have bought it. I'm a kaddish esalisha v'nim solei nedorim, v'nim solei mumin. Person married a woman and he wasn't aware she's desperately sick, she's dying. That's kiddush toys. Or she did not share with him that she has some terrible blemish. That's kiddush toys. You bought a house and the yesodis of the house are improper. That's mekach tos. In our case, when an animal dies during work, are we 100% sure that that animal was deficient? Really? Maybe he just overworked, he got a heart attack, or it died for any other reason while it was working. I don't think that is the level in which we could say it's a mekach tos. Mekach tos is only if we know beyond doubt that the entire purchase was a mistake. I don't think Mesa Machmas Malach proves to that extent that we could say mekach tos. And if it is a mekach tos, why is he chayiv shuas a SHOMRIM? If it's a mekach tos, he was never a shomer. So why does he need to swear shuas a SHOMRIM? And therefore, I think both the Machna Ephraim and the Goen are tzorach. So let us just stick with the Ramban and the Rashba. Siv Gimel. Let's have a look at Shin Mem Siv Gimel. The Machlokes, the Rama and the Rosh, both opinions are brought in the Tur. And the Machlokes Rama and Rosh are a
Let's
Machlokes.
can we start with the tour or Pesach? The Rav would like to see the tour.
Let's start with the tour. That is
Okay.
where it starts before the Shulchan Aruch.
The
What we have.
tour,
Okay.
Pesach, the tour is afterwards and now print. There you go.
Here we are. Kosev Rama. Mishishol behem alelech derech yadua.
Back to where you were a second ago. Pesach, you had the page. No, not this one, the other one. Kosev Rama. Entschuldig, HaRav. It'll come up in a second. No, the tour. We had the tour. Kosev Rama. You had it 30 seconds ago. Right there.
It's up, Rabbi.
Kosev Rama. Mishishol behem alelech derech yadua. V'bol v'listem b'yosei derech achayis chos v'yansua memenu chosev shapa misa mach malocha. Ki v'shemach mesa derech sheshol alelech bo. Ne'ensa. Ki heiche de patrinen ahu de shol shomrim HaRav v'yochla achbarem tuve v'mesa. Afar pi shol lehorgeso hamalocha gufo. Kivin shebamalocha sheshara letzorka mesa b'gramasa. So that's a very funny case of a person that borrowed a cat to kill the mice that were infesting his home. And the cat had a very hearty appetite. It ate too many mice and it died. Is that Mesa Machmas Halacha? The Gemara says yes. And in a moment we'll see that Amo quotes that halacha. Mesa Machmas Malach. No. So that's a boyadora ifshita in the Gemara. The Gemara deals with two cases. One case is interesting. I don't think zoologists ever encountered a case like that. So we
Let's
borrowed
go
a
to the
cat.
Gemara. Let's go back to the Gemara so we can learn the Gemara with the Rav. Pesach, back to the Gemara with the two cats. First page. Second page. Rav, scroll down.
Tzadik Zayin Amud Aleph. Mesa Machmas Malacha Pota. Hahu Gavra the Shol that no. And Shol Gav the Shol SHOMRIM Chavrei. Chober Alei Achber Vekatlo. Well, the mice saw imminent danger. There's a cat coming to kill us. So one mouse can't fight a cat, but 50 mice might overpower a cat. 1,000 Lilliputans might overpower Gulliver. So the mice came together, they developed a strategy, they attacked the cat and they killed him. Is that Mesa Machmas Malacha? There are more Paskins? Yes, that is Mesa Machmas Malacha. Story number two. Story number two. Ikadiyamra, Ochel Achber Tuva, Bechovel Bemeis. He devoured too many mice and he developed some stomach problems and he died. What about that case? And the Gemara says the same svara. Gavra deno shekatlu alav dina velo daina. So the Gemara seems to say that would not be considered Mesa Machmis Malacha. So the Rama brings story number one. It is Mesa Machmis Malacha. Let's go back to the tour now. Let's go back to the tour. We can analyze the Rosh, but because I shared with you the problem I have, I would go directly to the tour. Kosav Harama. Here we are. And hoodlums, robbers, bears, wolves, kill the animal. According to the Rama, that is Mesa Machmis Malacha. Just like the cat that ate too many mice, that is considered Mesa Machmis Malacha. Adoni Yovei HaRosh Omer. Ein ere, de loy dome leshum reshusha l'lareg achberet. The biyoyse malacha atzma ne'enso. That is Mesa Machmis Malacha. But a sakana that comes, an external danger that is not directly associated with the work I've been doing. robbers, animals that attacked the horse I borrowed, or the mule, or whatever it is, that's not Mesa Machmas Malva. That is the classical oinus, Shoel Chai Boins. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins in accordance to the Rama, Mesa Machmas Malacha Poto, Sif Gimel, and the Rama paskins Chayev. The Shach, Sif Koten Hay. We need to
Let's
scroll
scroll down, please.
Scroll
Pesach to
It's right on our bed. No, here we are.
Next page.
Scroll down. Sif Gimel. Sif Gimel, Shach Sif Koten. You need to scroll down.
here's the Shach.
Afilabi. No, Shach Sif Koten.
The Rashach passed like Ramban.
we need-
Gimel, no? In
We need
Gimel?
Sif Gimel. We need Sif Gimel. Down.
Keep on going, Pesach or Pesach.
Down.
I think the Shach is there's Sif Gimel. The
Sif
Shach.
Koten. Okay, Shach Sif Koten Gimel. We'll soon see the other Shach on Sif Koten Hay. Shoel beim mechaver derech edu avol av listim. Shulchan Aruch paskins patur Mesa Machmas Malacha. The Ramah brings us Cholkim. That's the opinion of the Rosh. The Svira lay the Loi Mikra Machmas Malacha. Aval lo yalichas derech efshe shevo oinus kazeh. Aval hamashal shidul ledefach ben bachlu achberem Mikra Mesa Machmas Malacha. So let's have a look at the Shach Sif Koten Gimel. Was I right that it's Sif Koten Hay?
Let's
Was
see.
I right that it's Sif Koten Hay?
Yeah, it's hay. I think it's hay. Yeah,
As I said before,
yeah. Keep on going down. The Shach is on the right side. So we got a little mixed up here because of the right and the left. So it's on the right side, right there. V'yesh cholkin.
okay. V'yesh cholkin, keiner yikar, kamo shekos Ramban, mavia b'is Yosef. Mesa Machmas Malacha is because the mashal was Pesheya. Here, the mashal is no Pesheya in any way. How would he know that the wolves will come out of the forest and kill this animal, and therefore it's not Mesa Machmas Malacha and Chayev. So would we say that the Machlokes Rama and Rosh depend on Ramban and Rashba? According to the Ramban, it's not Mechas Machmas Malacha because he's not to blame. According to the Rashba, you know that this might happen. Why didn't you stipulate? And why didn't you demand compensation if it happens? So would we say the Machlokes Rama and Rosh, the Machlokes Machaba and Rama, directly depend on the two different interpretations, Ramban and Rashba? Maybe, not necessarily. So in Basin, we had a case, person borrowed a car from his friend and somebody smashed into his car while he was driving. Would that be considered Mesa Machmas Malacha? Would it be Potter or Chayev? Like an oinus? Would a car accident be similar to robbers, hoodlums, animals that kill an animal, and that it would depend on the Machlokes, the Machaba and the Ramah? Would it depend whether you're Sfari or Ashkenazi? So I don't want to go into the question of Sfardim and Ashkenazim and Choshe Mishpat. That's a separate discussion, which maybe we'll have opportunities in the future. Would it be the same as robbers or animals? There are two different interpretations why, according to the Ramah, would it be considered Mesa Machmas Malacha and not a classical oinus. The B'Seisef and Bedekabaya says, because it is only because you took this animal into the forest. That is why it was killed. Both the robbers, like Robin Hood, who dwelled in the forests, or the animals, they're not in the city. So this is Mesa Machmas Malcha. Then Hasidus has a different approach. Sif Kotnani says, if it would be in the city, you could call for help and chase away those people, those bad people or animals. But because it was out of the city, you couldn't have help. And according to both these interpretations, a car accident wouldn't be similar to the Machlokes Rama and Rosh. And everybody would agree that's an oinus, and an oinus is chayiv. But I don't know why the B'S Yosef and the Nesivs need to come up with these suggestions, and why wouldn't we simply say Mesa Machmas Malacha is because it happened in the course of my usage. And maybe it wouldn't happen if the animal would be just in the pasture. So anyway, this is a Machlokes Rama and Rosh. Let's go over to the Rambam. Because both the Ramban and the Rashba reject the Rambam. So let's have a look what the Rambam has to say in Hilchos Shala, Aleph Aleph, Perek Aleph Aloch Aleph. Do we have it on our source sheet of the Shloima?
We do. Yes, we do. It's coming in a second.
Rambam,
Why did the Rambam call Hilchos Shomrim Hilchos Shaila B'Bikoden? Why didn't he call it Hilchos Shomrim? They're all four Shomrim.
I don't know. I think this indicates that the Rambam feels that Shaila is not exactly the same concept as other Shomrim. So he calls it Shaila B'Bikoden because Shaila is not exactly B'Koden, but this is a totally different area of discussion.
Okay.
And this is what all the Rishonim reject. The Rivash in Siman Tov Chav Gimel says there actually is no Machlokes Rambam and Ramban. It's just a technicality. Sometimes it's impossible to define. How do we know that the oinus was machmas malacha? How do we assess that? How do we evaluate? And when do we argue it's machmas malacha? So a person was working, a donkey was carrying, a burden on its back, and suddenly it dropped dead. How do we know it's machmas malacha? Maybe it had a heart attack, kidney malfunction. Just, it ended its time. So how do we know machmas malacha? So the Rambam just gives it a technicality. If it died b'shas malacha, then we assume it's machmas malacha. That's the interpretation of the Rivash. But that's a big chiddush. The Rambam also uses very clear definitions. If that is the Rambam's understanding, we would expect the Rambam to use the Rosh Chazal, Mesa Machmas Malacha Poto. And then the Rambam would go on to explain, Kol Shemeis B'Shas Malacha is defined as Machmas Malacha. So I think the Rambam has a unique interpretation of this halacha, lo kedivrei HaRamban v'Rashba, lo kedivrei Grove Machne Ephraim. And let me share with you what I would suggest pshat the Rambam's understanding. Shoyer is chayiv because kol hanu shaloi. The bigger your benefit, the bigger your liability. However, contrary to Shoy Mechin and Shoy Mesocha, a shoyel has a kinyan. It is a limited kinyan, but it's a schus. I have the right to use the kli I borrowed. I have the right to use the animal I borrowed, and that is a monetary right. I have a kinyan lachatzoin, a kinyan chelki, a limited kinyan, but it is defined as a kinyan. And a Sanhedrin, Ayin Beis, and above Metzian Amidalat, we find the expression Oikmer Rachmona Birshu say. It is my monetary right to use this animal. So let me share with you, I think it's a nuanced but profound approach. If I have a right to use the animal, it is my right to destroy the animal in the process of proper usage. That is my right. It is my right to use this animal to carry a burden. And if the animal dies while carrying the burden, that is part of my monetary privilege. Because it is expected sometimes an animal would be hurt by doing its job. But that's my right. And if I need to pay damages that are incurred directly by work, that's my right. Regarding working with the tool or the animal I borrowed, it is as if it's mine. And I don't need to compensate anyone. I bought that right. I acquired that right. And that is part of the kinyan of Sha'ala. Let me nuance this with an additional touch. Kolanu is shaloi. If I bear liability, that's not kolanu is shaloi. Then my benefit is extremely limited. I can only use it to a limited extent. And if it's hurt, if it's damaged, I need to pay. That is not kolanu is shaloi. And the reason I bear liability for oisim is kolanu is shaloi. And that diminishes kolanu is shaloi. If I need to compensate the owner, even though I did no wrong, and the animal died or was hurt, or the tool broke down in the course of proper usage, you can't call that kolanu shaloi. And that is why, according to the Rambam, it depends on shas malacha. Doesn't really matter why. It matters when. When I use this kli, the kli is considered mine. That is what I acquired. That is what I was given. I was given the monetary right to use this animal. And that includes if the animal breaks down in the course of proper usage, I bear no liability. That is part of kolanu shaloi. That is part of kinyan shaila. That is the way I would understand the Rambam. So actually, we suggested 5 different interpretations. Ramban and Rashba. And maybe the Ramah and the Rosh depend on the Machlokes Ramban and Rashba. 2 interpretations of Achronim, Machna Ephraim and Gro, which we doubted. So the Rishonim reject the Rambam. That is what I would understand the opinion of the Rambam. Reb Shlomo, I have a dilemma. To my dismay, I have 5% battery. It won't take us very far. And I would like to discuss 10 different shaylas halacha l'maisa that are fascinating. We could only go through 1 or 2. I don't know what your plan is for next week. Are we still in SHOMRIM or we have different plans?
Our plans are flexible. And therefore, if the Rav's battery is going to be Mesa Machmas Malacha, I don't know whose pshia this was.
It's definitely my pshia.
I didn't mean to imply that.
I bear responsibility. It's a pshia de mashil, so it's not Mesa Machmas Malacha.
Okay.
But I don't know. So the only way I could compensate you is to see to it that next week I have a better charger.
All right. Okay. So we'll stipulate to that, and I would therefore suggest,
as long as we have battery, let's go.
Let's go as long as we have battery. But since there's 10 shilas and these shilas are all very, very negela maisa, we would have no problem with continuing SHOMRIM next week, and maybe we can do Pshil B'Bailam also together with this.
Maybe. But I will focus on the practical application and implications of Mesa Machmas Malacha and the fascinating questions that we find in Achronim. But
maybe the Rav should give the Divrei Hesped on Gershon for a few minutes, and then
that's a great idea. So Rav Gershon was an extremely modest person, and only in his very old age was the leadership thrust upon him, really thrust upon him. So my Agdora about Rav Gershon is he was an Avrech, 100 years old. And his Seder Yom, after 80 years in yeshiva, was fundamentally the same. He was an Avrech all his life, till his last day. How long is an Avrech? Usually 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years. At some stage, he's tired of being an Avrech. Either he's a Rosh Yeshiva, or he becomes an Askin, or a fundraiser, or he just goes out to work. Reb Gershon was an Avrech for 80 years. He learned 80 years the same sugyas, the same esechtes, with the same fervor and the same passion as the first day he came to yeshiva. What was unique about Reb Gershon? He wasn't a boki like Reb Chaim. He wasn't a machadish with the beauty of Torah like his shutaf. Shiabod Lachaim Toivim Baruchim Rebel Pravarsky HaKadosh Baruch should send them Avur Shalem Arichas Yom HaNishonim. Most of you probably know Rebel. You heard his beautiful, flowery, and amazing shiurim. Reb Gershon wasn't nearly as engaging, as colorful. But what's special with Reb Gershon was his yashus. He was very, very yosher. Reb Chaim Volozhin writes in one of his famous letters, and I quote, Kol chachmi yesod arishonim v'achronim lo nishtab poela b'yosher eslovaso. Hayosher mechavei roi godel heimenu. Reb Gershon possessed a certain yashus and a certain pashtus, which is very appealing, and it's lamitul shel Torah. So the story goes, when he was a younger man in Panovich, the Panovich HaRav, Rav Kahneman, told him, you have such beautiful svaras, such glatis svaras, why don't you print a sefer? And he says, because I'm still working on my svaras, and I hope they will be even better. Panovich HaRav says, that's also a svara yeshora. Well, that's a svara yeshora as well. He was an unbelievable massman. And his greatness was his shleimus, Ishu Eshkolos, Benodem Lamokam and Benodem Lachaveroi. I heard from a person that used to accompany him on his travels, and he didn't travel much. He didn't go to many yeshivas, Benesman, to give shiurim, because his shiurim weren't exciting. They were fundamental. But this younger man accompanied him whenever he got into a car, and he drove anywhere. And he told me he always had a Gemara or a Sefer Musa with him. And he would always utilize the time he's sitting in a vehicle. However, whenever he got into a car, he first inquired who his driver is, how's he doing, how's his family. Fundamental derech eretz shekod minatayv. And he always told his driver to follow the rules and the laws and to drive carefully and safely. And that is so important. Gershon was an onev. And in many ways, there are similarities between Rabban Alev and Reb Gershon. Rabban Alev was far more famous. The American community was exposed to the greatness of Rabban Alev in his travels to America. And I had the unbelievable privilege and I thank Reb Shlomo for giving me the opportunity to accompany Rabban Leib. In many ways, they had similarities. Their modesty, their anvas chein, and their greatness in Torah. Like Rabban Leib, Reb Gershon scorned covet. Not only did it mean nothing to him, he was repulsed by covet. So a younger man once came to ask a eitzah from Reb Gershon. He davens in a shul of Bnei Torah, and every week between Kabbalah, Shabbos, and Maariv, one of the Avrechim says a Devar Torah. So he asked Reb Gershon, should I say a Chabura, in Lamdis, or Devar Chizuk, a Gadata, maybe a Musar thought? And Reb Gershon said, do you think anybody is interested in what you, Machadish, and Koilel and the Sugi are learning? I mean, they're not learning the same Suga. They don't learn in your Koilel. Who cares about what the Chidushim that you said? Of course, say a Milida Gadata. Maybe you touch someone's heart. Maybe you will inspire someone to come closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the Avrech said, but it's a meaning of B'nai Torah. And the Gabe says it's an embarrassment to say Agadata. You know, we're all Talmidei Chachamim. And I'm a great Talmid Chacham. And Reb Gershon laughed and he said, so what's more important? Your covet, or maybe opening one heart and bringing one individual closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So to Reb Gershon, that is all that mattered. Bringing people closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bringing chizik to the world. He had time and patience for everyone, even though he was an unbelievable master. So one of the Choshev people at my base in is of Katzenelboy and Reb Hillel. And he visited Reb Gershon just 2 months ago with his family, with his children. Reb Gershon was 100 years old. When you're 100 years old, you know you don't have that much time. When you're 100 years old, you know it doesn't last forever. And you try to take advantage of every moment you have. And Gershon asked each and every one of his children, what's your name? What are you learning? And with so much patience, as if he's just waiting for someone to come into his house and schmooze with him. Those were his beautiful midas. As I said, and Hagar was thrust upon him, he always tried to run away. So after Rabban Leib passed away, even during the lifetime of Reb Chaim was the ultimate Yoshev oil. And Reb Chaim dedicated his time to individuals, and he tried to shy away from another tzibur. But primarily after Reb Chaim passed away, that was Reb Gershon's turn to serve. And he saw that totally as service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and service to Klal Yisrael. So Reb Gershon was a sage, 90 years of Omelat Torah, almost 80 years of Arbotzes Torah, the ultimate Avrech. He was a Ben Yeshiva till his last day. And he had this unbelievable, amazing schus, clarity of mind to this very last day. A day before he passed away, he still gave a short shiur. And our generation was blessed to have amongst us a gadol of this magnitude and this modesty and this anova. And we have so much to learn from that. So he lived 100 years, and many times I say, some people ask, well, nobody lives forever. What are you crying about? I imagine that when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, nobody asked, how many years did this house stand? 400 years. Well, not many houses stand 400 years. So what are you crying about? The Beis Hamikdash is not a house like any other. It's not a building of Eitz Ve'evan. The base of Mikdash was Mokom Hashras Shechina. The base of Mikdash was Ha'or Sponim. As long as we had the Beit of Mikdash, HaKadosh Baruch Hu dwelled amongst us. It is the same with Gedolei Hador, regardless of how old they are. It's always ours. These great tzaddikim are Megan on the door. We have so much to gain just by looking at them, just by observing their kedusha, their anova. So it is always a tremendous force. It should be a melitz yosef Klal Yisrael, and we should be zoicha b'korach t'tchiyas hameisem and binyan beis hamikdash v'mehera v'yameinu amen. So I'm looking forward to next week, and we will deal with the practical application and implications of Mesa Machmas Malacha. Kol Tov to all of you.